All right, let's talk about one of the single biggest mistakes in business, trying to sell to absolutely everyone. We're going to break down the powerful marketing strategy that the smartest companies in the world use to find their perfect customer.
Every single entrepreneur has probably had this thought at some point. My product is so amazing, it's for everybody. Which, of course, leads to the next logical question. Okay, so how do we sell to everyone?
Well, the short and maybe kind of blunt answer is, you don't. And what's more, you shouldn't even try. Trying to be everything to everyone is just about the fastest way to become a whole lot of nothing to no one.
And what's really fascinating is how the most successful companies prove this is true. Just look at LinkedIn. They didn't try to be another Facebook for your family photos. Nope. They built a multi-billion-dollar empire by focusing, almost obsessively, on three very specific groups: professionals looking for their next gig, advertisers trying to reach them, and recruiters who are hunting for talent. That focus, that was their superpower.
Now, this kind of success isn't an accident. It's not a lucky guess. There's an actual, formal process behind it. It's a powerful and totally learnable three-step strategy that can completely change how you see your market.
So, here's the game plan. We're going to start with the core idea, which is called STP marketing. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how you slice up markets for both regular people and for businesses. After that, we'll talk about how to actually choose your target, and finally, we'll run through a quick checklist to make sure your strategy is built to last.
All right, let's get right into it. The foundation of all of this, STP marketing.
So the whole thing kicks off with this idea called market segmentation. At its heart, it's actually pretty simple. It's just the process of taking a huge, messy, chaotic market and carving it up into these neat, well-defined little groups. And each group or slice is made up of customers who want and need similar things.
And that brings us to the three-step STP process. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, you segment. You identify those different groups of buyers. Second, you target. You look at all those groups and you pick which one or maybe ones you're going to go after. And third, you position. You figure out exactly how to communicate your unique value to that specific group you chose.
This visual really makes it click, right? You start with this big, jumbled mess of different color dots. That's the whole market. Segmentation is just the act of grouping those dots by color. Targeting is picking one color group and saying, yep, that's our crew. And positioning is crafting the perfect message to convince that one group that you are the only solution for them.
So that's the what, but how do you actually do it? How do you segment? Let's start with customers like you and me, the consumer market.
Marketers basically look at this through 4 different lenses. First, there's geographic, which is simply where do they live? Then you've got demographic, which asks who are they? Things like age, gender, income. Psychographic goes even deeper. It's about how do they think? What's their lifestyle? What do they value? And finally, you have behavioral, which is all about how do they act? What do they buy? When and why?
Let's just zoom in on behavioral for a second, because this one is incredibly powerful. You can segment by occasions, right? Like people who only buy flowers around Valentine's Day. You can look at user status. Is this a brand new user or maybe an ex-user you're trying to win back? Or what about usage rate? Is this someone who uses your product every single day? That's a heady user you definitely want to keep happy. And of course, loyalty. Is this person a hardcore loyal who would never dream of switching? Or are they a switcher who's always chasing the next best deal?
Okay, so that's how you do it for people. But what if your customer is another company? Well, that's a whole different ballgame. It requires a different set of tools.
For B2B markets, the variables change. You still start with the basics, like their industry or how big the company is, but then you can get way more specific, looking at what kind of technology they use or how their purchasing department works. You can even segment based on things like how urgently they need an order filled or the personal relationships your sales team has with their buyers.
So you've done all the hard work. You've sliced and diced the market into all these different segments. Now comes the moment of truth. Which ones do you actually go after? How do you pick the winners?
Well, to make a smart decision, you have to grade each segment against 3 key criteria. First, its size and growth. Is it actually big enough and growing fast enough to be worth your time? Second, its structural attractiveness. How tough is the competition in there? Or there are a million other options for customers? And third, and this one is absolutely crucial, does it even fit with your own company's goals and resources? Can you realistically win in this space? Once you've done your evaluation, you've got to choose your play. You could go for mass marketing, like the old Ford Model T. One car, one color, for everyone. Or you could do the complete opposite and go after a niche market, where you get hyper-focused on serving one very specific group, like a local brewery that only makes gluten-free beer. The more focused you are, the better you can nail that specific customer's needs.
And finally, how do you know if you've done all this right? Well, there's a super handy 5-point checklist to make sure your segmentation strategy is actually going to work in the real world. For any segment to be truly useful, it has to pass these 5 tests. First, is it measurable? Can you actually put a number on it? Is it substantial? Is it big enough to make you a profit? Is it accessible? Can you actually reach these people with your marketing? Is it differentiable? Do they really act differently than other groups? And finally, is it actionable? Can you realistically create a marketing plan to win them over?
And this is the bottom line, really. If your segments fail these tests, if you can't measure them, or if they all respond to your ads in the exact same way, then your entire strategy is just a fun thought experiment. It's an academic exercise, not a real business plan.
Which brings us right back to the central idea from the source material. Real marketing success isn't about having the flashiest commercial, it's about the hard, strategic work of identifying and then uniquely satisfying the right customers.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Think about your favorite brand. Could be Apple, could be Nike, doesn't matter. A huge part of their success is defined not just by who they sell to, but by the millions and millions of people they have deliberately chosen not to sell to. Their focus is their strength. So who are they ignoring, and why does that make them so darn powerful?